Hello, everybody, and welcome to another One Stop Wrestling podcast. I'm Alex, and this week I'm joined by the dastardly duo of Rohit and Alfonso. And for this week's topic, we're going to be discussing who is the greatest manager in wrestling history. Now, this topic has come about because of Paul Heyman's induction into the Hall of Fame. And Heyman stands out as arguably one of the greatest managers in wrestling history. He may even be one of our picks for this podcast. Who knows? And it got us thinking about some of the great managers in wrestling history. And managers can be a really important role, especially for like talent that isn't as strong on the microphone, that needs somebody to get them over or get a feud over or get a match over. There have been so many good ones. So we'll dive into it. Alfonso and Rohit, how are you guys doing today?
I'm doing good. I think you summed it up pretty well with Paul Heyman, and yeah, that's it for today's episode. Thank you very much for listening.
There you go. Paul Heyman's the greatest manager in wrestling history. Bye, everyone.
No, but yeah, that was the main inspiration, and we were like, what can we talk about this week? And I think it just lined up pretty well. So I was just like, yeah, we were like, sounds good to us. So yeah, excited to see what we can come up with and who else gets mentioned, really. So yeah.
Yeah, we'll all come up with who we think is the best. We'll chuck in a few honourable mentions as well.
Mhm.
Alfonso, how are you?
All good, all good. Like for me, today is a morning episode for me, so it's a different kind of episode with a little bit of coffee. And talking
You,
about wrestling is always good way to start my Friday.
yes, bright and early
Coffee,
in El Salvador. What is it there?
birds
7
chirping,
a.m., 8 a.m.?
It's 8 a.m. and
birds chirping, piece of
next
toast, coffee.
and next week I'm on holiday, so this is my
Oh.
last day of work, like before holiday. So I'm very
Come
happy
to
about that.
England.
I hope so. I could do that. But
So,
yeah, I think
You'd have easy jet in El Salvador. That should be quite cheap if they do.
it's like an 8 hours flight.
That's not too bad, to be fair.
No, it's not too bad. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think managers are a very important role in wrestling. Well, they were, because nowadays you don't see a lot of managers anymore.
no, you
Yeah.
don't.
It's a little bit less, isn't it?
Yeah.
And even the guy that we're talking about is not even a manager anymore. He's an advocate, or he's a special counsel to the tribal chief.
The
You
wise
know,
man.
The
though
wise
he's a wise man. That's it. That's the word. And I think it's very interesting how they have developed those different roles. Because right now you
yeah.
have these kind of like mentors. They're not like managers per se.
Mm,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think these days, everybody has to be good on the mic. Like, there are a few exceptions.
There's a lot of
But
people
like,
with multi roles, isn't there? That they're managers, but also like a coach, kind of like as a once a mentor, kind of like I don't know, like I
Because right
guess
now,
second, if you want to call him that.
yeah,
because right now you can even argue that Dakota Kai is going to become a manager for
Mm,
the Kabuki Warriors.
yeah. I mean,
yeah, you
Zelina
know,
Vega has kind of been a manager, and she kind of still is now, but she's also wrestling at the same time. So it's like she's doing both at the same time. So it's a bit,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, it's
that's
like multi roles, isn't it?
multi
Really, like
roles. Yeah.
you look at AEW, you've probably got what, like Don Callis and Stokely Hathaway, who are like
Mm.
full time managers.
Yeah, Sting to an extent was a manager in a way, more mentor-ish, but again, he did do that multi-role when he was still there doing his thing with Darby. So yeah, I
Yeah,
think a lot of people.
different from
Mhm.
managers of the past
Yeah,
that were exclusive managers.
yeah,
Yeah, like Alfonso said, you don't get a lot of them these days.
no.
Um, so yeah, we'll dive straight into it now. So we'll start with you, Rohit. Who do you think is the greatest manager in wrestling history?
I think when you look at wrestling history, like in Japan, managers aren't too much like of a common occurrence. They're more like seconds, like as in like how like martial arts or boxing does it in a sense. But you do have your characters there. But I think in general, I think it's mainly between two people, and I would say it's between Bobby the Brain Heenan and Paul Heyman. Now, for me, Bobby Heenan, as great as he was a bit before my time in a sense. I never seen too much of his stuff. Retrospectively, I have, but
Yeah,
I've seen more of Paul Heyman. Plus, obviously, I know it's not manager stuff, but what he did with ECW and everything like that, and how respected he is with multiple people, and even people who hated him have come around and said, yeah, he's done some great stuff. And yeah, so for me, Paul Heyman, I think, is number one, and he's rightfully being inducted into the Hall of Fame. But there's obviously a lot of other years. I love or hate him. Jim Cornette was pretty good. Freddie Blassie, obviously. Again, some of these names are a bit before my time, but I've heard their stuff, I've seen some of their stuff. Miss Elizabeth was pretty cool for her role as well.
yeah.
You had like Mr. Fuji, Sonny Ono. I'd like to mention Sonny Ono. I think he was a bit of a character as well for WCW. And yeah, in the modern days, if I am gonna throw some Japanese a little bit in there,
Of
I
course
think
you
yeah,
are.
I think you have to give a little bit of credit to Gator, really. Like his work with Okada, his work with Jay White. I mean, David
He's the
Finley
booker
seems
now,
to be.
isn't he?
Yeah, he's also the booker, but his main role on screen is still a manager. He's not like the general manager or anything. He's like a manager. He still wrestles. He's usually eating the pinfall, which is a good thing rather than him get himself booked as world champion or something crazy. But hey, but yeah, I think he's got a good challenge with David Finlay to get him over, and I think slowly but surely some people are turning around, but there's a lot of resistance against it. So it's be interesting to see how what he can do. But going back to like the main point, I think yeah, for me it's Paul Heyman, great on the mic, and just look at his work with Brock Lesnar, his work with CM Punk, obviously with Roman Reigns now. It speaks for itself, really, I think. And I think he's just like a great character. He's got great insight for the business. Um, Again, everything he does, he's booked a show, he's run his own company, he's been an ambassador for the WWE. He's even like tried to scout talent, and he's got a good eye. And he called it as well. Like many people in the West didn't believe, but he said that Will Ospreay is a star, and obviously tried to nudge him towards the WWE like years ago. Didn't obviously happen, but yeah, and people now saying, "Oh, Carter is great. He can cut a promo. Osprey is great. He can cut a promo." We already knew that. It's just people who didn't bother watching and decided to watch clips on X and Twitter and be like, "Oh yeah, I watch New Japan. I know who Okada is." You don't know who Okada is. But yeah, Paul Heyman is my answer. Before I go too rambling on.
Yeah, I think it's a great pick, really, Rohit. Like you said, like he's probably got one of the best minds in wrestling, like creative minds. Like
Yeah.
he's so good at getting things over. Like he could sell anything to anyone, I believe. Like
Yeah.
he's got that type of like mouth about him where he would just talk about anything and it would just become better and you make you want to watch it. Like he's so good at that, and he worked perfect with Brock because Brock has never been the
Yeah.
strongest on the mic. But even like with guys like Punk and Roman who can both talk really well,
Yeah.
like he still adds so much to their shtick. Like it's brilliant.
And I think it's a bit refreshing because when you have those talkers like Roman and Punk, and they have someone like Heyman, they don't have to talk every week. And then when they do say something, it feels like even more impactful or even more
Yeah,
special. But
he
yeah,
he only enhances the
ex-
act.
yeah, yeah. And just before we move on to Alfonso or yourself, Ali, I just want to give two other shout that just popped into my head. From TNA, Father James Mitchell. I know a bit controversy with the whole NWA stuff recently, or not. Was it recent? I don't even know how long that was, where they did something and wasn't really too popular, and potential TV deals got taken away. But I think his work was pretty good in TNA. What he did with Abyss and as a manager, and his character itself, pretty
Yeah,
cool. And I think her name was forgot her name, but I think her name was Katarina from Lucha Underground. I
Oh
don't know if
yeah,
you remember.
yeah,
Was
yeah. I
it
remember
Katarina from
him.
Real Muertes? Yeah, I think her look, her presence, what she added to the character, and obviously I know Lucha Underground was more of like a shot as like a TV show mixed with the wrestling show, but it was just so great. And her character, what she did with them as a manager, and just her presentation was really cool. So I thought I'd mention her as well. But yeah,
Yeah, some great picks, Rohi. Obviously, a lot of the names you mentioned are like older names, like we said at the start of the
yeah,
podcast. Like it's not really a thing that you see a lot of these days, as
no,
opposed to
not
like
at
the
all.
80s and 90s. So
Yeah.
we'll move on to you, Alfonso. Who do you think is the greatest manager in wrestling history? Are we going for a name from back in the day? Um,
No, I think this episode is very straightforward. I think the guy of the moment is going to get inducted to the Hall of Fame finally. He hasn't retired yet. He has a longevity, and I think what you said is the most important thing. He can sell anything. Like you
Mm.
can have him go out there, have a promo for 10 minutes, and he's going to sell. I don't care what match, you know.
Yeah.
And Paul Heyman has done that his whole career. I think his run with Punk was amazing, and I think the phrase "I'm a Paul Heyman guy" meant so much for a long time. And the only thing that I was hoping and I was waiting for was the Paul Heyman girl or the whole Paul Heyman woman.
I mean, if you went on X at the time, you had a lot of fitness models approaching for him and saying, "I'm a Paul Heyman girl." So,
Yeah, I know. But that's another story, Rohit. I mean,
yeah, but
we've never had it on screen, have we?
yeah.
Really?
yeah,
I
like
thought Ronda was gonna be that for
exactly,
so
exactly.
long,
Oh,
and
that
they
would have
never
worked
pulled the
so
trigger
well.
with that.
that that's
With
what
Surprised.
I
Rhonda.
mean. That's what I mean. Like they could have chose like Ronda or
Even now, if they tried to repackage like Shayna Baszler, they could do that because she had so much momentum coming from NXT. That little feud she had with, I think it was Becky when she came up, was so
the
good,
thing. Yeah,
and
I
then
don't know
nothing
if you
happened.
remember, but they made her a vampire and then they fuck her up.
Yeah, I remember that part. Yeah, that was the bit of the downfall, really. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but
it's like they could have done something, and I think even now they can do something with her. Just like they don't want to. It's like they got nothing for her, which I don't understand, especially with like Ronda gone and like you have someone like a Rhea Ripley who's like this powerhouse of a champion. Why don't you have someone else on the roster that's like this threat that can like brutalize people? But
the thing is that we have to wait and see to see what happened with her because right now she's going to go and fight in the GCW.
yeah,
So let's hope that they make something out of her after that match. But yeah, for me, Paul Heyman has been the guy
yeah,
always. Like when I think about the manager, two people come to my head: Paul Heyman and Paul Bear.
yeah. Paul
Oh,
Bearer
Paul
is a good
Bearer.
one. Yeah,
He's up. He has to be up there and considered
Like
as one of the best. Yeah.
because I might a bit younger,
ooh
so
yeah.
yeah, exactly. So for me, Mr. Pringle has to be there.
Yeah,
Like those are the guys that I remember as a young kid, and those are the guys that I still like imagine in my head when I'm talking about the manager. I also want to get shout out to Stoke Hathaway
yeah,
because I think he's one of the funniest guy ever in X, and I wish
yeah.
they
He's
do
good.
more
He's
with
good.
him because I think he has a lot of like a comedy moment and he can do a lot of things. And also, I want to give a big shout to Lana
Mm.
because when there were no managers in WWE, she became one of the greatest managers ever. In the beginning, when there was no
She's
love triangles or things like that,
yeah.
she was the perfect fit for Rusev.
She's one of the few like modern people like talent that have come in that weren't like wrestlers or general managers before that became just a straight up manager, and then obviously she's done some wrestling afterward, but she came in as a manager, which is very interesting, like because you don't see that, because if you look at the WWE now, one of the few managers apart from like Paul Heyman that I can think of is like MVP. But again, he's a former wrestler, so that's pretty. Lana deserves the praise. Yeah, I think that's a good
Like
shout. Yeah,
is the same with Scarlett. Scarlett
yeah,
Bordeaux was the perfect piece of manager for Karen Cross, and
yeah.
when they removed her in the first match that Karen Cross has against Jeff Hardy, it didn't work at all because she was so essential to the character and to the package of
Was
that.
that the match where he had that weird outfit on as well? Was that
Yeah,
after?
exactly, the gimp outfit,
Yeah, yeah,
It was
and that
like some of the worst booking I've ever seen. Like he was the NXT champion. He came up, they stripped him away of everything that made him him, and he jobbed to Jeff Hardy in like 2 minutes.
yeah, exactly. So for me, that's when you think about an important manager. But let's go back to
yeah.
Paul Heyman. Let's go back to Paul Heyman with CM Punk. Let's go back to Paul Heyman with Brock Lesnar. And I think right now, when you talk about Paul Heyman and you see Roman Reigns, I think it's very important to see the creative part of it.
Yeah.
Paul Heyman was talking about in an interview about how the tribal chief persona is made from Apocalypse Now, the movie,
Mm,
and he talks about that, that's when I think about creativity in wrestling,
yeah.
because that's one of the most important things for me, like how creative people are and how they want to do the storytelling for the people. And you guys said it perfectly. Those guys can speak 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and when the wrestler, their manager, step aside and they'll let them talk. It's amazing to hear like Brock Lesnar talk from time to time or CM
Yeah.
Punk talk to time to time. And yeah, for me, he's the best one, and I'm very happy that he's going to the Hall of Fame. I think him going to the Hall of Fame in Philadelphia
Mm,
is the right thing to do. And I
yeah.
don't usually see the Hall of Fame. I just see bits and pieces, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to be seated watching his speech.
Yeah, I usually watch them afterwards just because certain wrestlers I like their stories that they have. Like some of the ones I remember off the top of my head, Edge's one was really fun. Just and a couple of others was like Stone Cold, Kurt Angle's one was
Who
fun.
do you
So
think?
yeah.
Who do you think is going to introduce him to the Hall of Fame? Punk?
I mean, there's rumors Undertaker as well.
Oh, Taker. What?
Yeah,
Taker?
they got a
Well,
lot of
they
got a
they they
good
went back
relationship
to they
backstage.
go all the way back to
WCW,
ECW when he was
yeah.
mean Mark
So
Callis.
yeah, so they've always had a good relationship. Maybe not too much like on screen, like they never worked that much, like, especially in later years. But like in WWE, but yeah, so that's touted. Obviously, Dreamer if they can get him, which I'm sure TNA wouldn't really mind. Uh, yeah, I think Tommy Dreamer would be good. Raven would be interesting just to see what Raven would have crazy things he'd have to say if he he inducted Paul Heyman. Yeah,
What
I'd
about
probably.
you, Alex?
Uh,
Greatest manager in history. Well, I think Heyman is like a great choice.
yeah.
I'm going to disagree with you two.
No.
I think
That's
I
it.
think
Thank you, guys. Bye bye.
Okay, Craig. What do you think?
I'm going to be the heel.
Okay.
No, I think Heyman is 2 or 3 on my list.
Yeah.
You're going to say Triple H?
No, I'm not that bad. So I'm a bit older than you two. So like I grew up watching the Attitude Era, but like once the Attitude Era finished, I didn't have like Sky or cable or whatever
Yeah.
you want to call it. So I relied solely on getting old VHS tapes and DVDs and just watching old wrestling.
Yeah.
So for me, the best manager is Rohit. You've already mentioned him. Is Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Yeah. I think that's
The
also what
whistle.
Paul Heyman would say.
Yeah, exactly.
I
So
just think like he was just incredible. Like he had his whole family around him, the Heenan family group,
mhm.
like probably a bit similar to like Don Callis has his family these days.
Yeah. Oh,
And they
that's
were
a good
just on,
shout, to be fair. Modern day.
yeah, they were just on TV like all the time, but like in big angles and feuds. Like Andre the Giant was like the biggest babyface going in like the early 80s, and he turned heel for the match with Hogan at WrestleMania 3, and like nobody really wanted to boo him, but like he joined Heenan's family, and Heenan was the one who got him over as a heel, because everybody hated Heenan, and Heenan managed to get the crowd to boo Andre for the match with Hogan. And obviously, you know, that match is like one of the most famous matches in like wrestling history, which just skyrocketed WWE to new heights. But there was he played a big role in WrestleMania 3. Like he did some great stuff with Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, when he was with Heenan for a while, and then like his breakout from Heenan turned Perfect into like this huge babyface. Like again, it's just Heenan being such an amazing heel that anybody who opposes him or stands against him is just going to be like the biggest babyface, because he was so good at getting heat. Like, and he was just a great talker. He was great. His like comedic timing was really good. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever heard him on commentary with Gorilla Monsoon.
Yeah, I heard some stuff with him on commentary, over the years.
Oh my God, he was so good. Like that pairing was brilliant, because Monsoon was like the ultra babyface commentator. Like I just remember that one line when Shawn Michaels throws Marty Jannetty through the barbershop window and does this big heel turn, and Heenan's line is he just says, "Oh, I knew he was going to do that." And that kind of thing just like sums up how great he was.
What would have been more funny is like if he said, "Ah, yes, I told him to do that,"
or something like that. That's the
I
kind of
think
thing
that
he
would have
say.
been.
Yeah.
If that, I can't remember what he said exactly, but if he said something like that, even more funnier, really.
Yeah, like he was so quick-witted, unbelievable. I mean, there's a reason they call him the Brain, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, Heyman is up there completely. Like amazing manager, like so good at talking. He just enhances any act. I think Jimmy Hart has to be considered.
Yeah, Jimmy.
He obviously started with the Hart Foundation, Brett, when it was Brett and Jim the Anvil Neidhart, and they were quite green and they couldn't really talk, and Jimmy Hart got them over like really well, like, and probably gave them a boost of confidence that they needed. And like, you know,
Mouth
if Jimmy
of the
Hart
South,
wasn't there,
right? I think that's
the mouth of the South?
I think that's what it was. One of his
Jimmy
names.
Hart. And if he wasn't there, like, would Brett have been the guy that he turned out to be? I mean, obviously Brett would have always had the wrestling skill, but in terms of the character and things like that. And Rohit, my other shout you've already mentioned.
Alex?
Cornette was great at being a heel, similar to Heenan, where like when he like got his tennis racket out and used to like
I remember that.
whack the baby faces and like get a cheap win. Like he was so good at making you want to see somebody beat the crap out of him, if that makes sense. So like,
but that's a different kind of that's a different kind of manager. I think there has been like a manager for every era, you know, because you cannot do the Whistle the Brain right now in TV. It's not going to work.
Yeah,
you know, and I think that's one of the things that is so perfect about the Brain, because the work he made was perfect for that time. They needed a character like that, and he played it perfectly. It was great.
Oh my God, yes, he really did. Yeah, he was perfect for that time. Similar to like Cornette was perfect for his time as well.
I think he should come back and go to Japan and hit flip in the House of Torture with the tennis racket. But
well, Cornette practically buries everything that happens in wrestling these days. So
true. I mean, if he can bury the House of Torture, and I think Japan would put him next to an Inoki or something. Obviously not that far, but you know, I think they'd be grateful if he did.
Cornette was great. He was great. And he was a good mouthpiece as well. He had Camp Cornette with Yokozuna and Owen Hart in the mid-90s in WWE. Obviously, he was famous for the Midnight Express back in the NWA in the late 80s that
Yeah.
were, a great tag team. Those were my standout picks, really.
Yeah.
But I think
In
obviously
TNA as a general manager, I think his mouth work, like his promos and everything, were really good, and I really liked him. And then I was like, why does everyone hate him? And then I realized afterwards why, and I'm just like, oh, that's a bit sad. But
Cornette, you mean?
yeah, Cornette, yeah.
Oh yeah, he's like highly controversial these days. Yeah, with some of the
Yeah.
stuff he
And
says.
I was like, I used to like him in TNA. He did some good stuff. He was fun.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, you both picked Paul Heyman. So I think by the numbers,
I'm not mad at Bobby Heenan. Yeah, it's definitely between them two, like I said at the start as well.
Yeah.
But,
So Heyman, by the numbers, Heyman is the greatest manager in wrestling history, 2-1. Before we go, I'm going to ask both of you who, and I want an answer. There's no ducking out. Who is Paul Heyman's best client? Which guy worked best with Heyman?
You go first, Rohit.
Oh. I think just because of the need for each other, I think I'd have to go with Brock Lesnar. Just because obviously I know Paul didn't need him as much, but I think he got Brock like the presentation, that extra like superstar feeling that Brock needed. I feel like otherwise he's just like a big voided looking guy that has an amateur background, really. So I think that helped him a lot. So I think I'd edge it to Brock just because I think the others would have gotten over or have gotten over without Paul. But obviously, Paul has done a great job with them. So I say Lesnar.
It's a good point. Yeah. Alfonso, what do you think?
Oh, it's a very difficult one because I was thinking about Cesaro. I was thinking about Test.
Oh, I
was
forgot about
thinking
Pest. Yeah.
I was thinking about the Dudley Boys. I was thinking about the Heidenreich. I was thinking about
You can't pick Heidenreich, for God's sake.
I was thinking about Curtis Axel.
That sucked as well. Sorry.
What?
Curtis Axel and Ryback pairing with Heyman, that kind of sucked. No offense.
Yeah, no, I'm kidding. Like for me,
but so many. But go on, Alfonso.
I think my decision was so strong that Rohit, I made him leave the call. And for me, the Paul Heyman guy for me has to be CM Punk because I'm a big CM Punk guy. But to be honest, I think the best client for him was RVD.
Interesting. So you think he was the best like client of Heyman in terms of their relationship together? Yeah.
Because if there wasn't that relationship, there were not ECW in the later part of the ECW, and I think they needed that. I think like Brock Lesnar was so good at everything that he does that you didn't need Heyman in the end,
Yeah. It's a great point. Yeah, I think I would have to go with Brock just because of the fact that he probably.
But that's the easy route.
It is the easy route. It is, but it's the talking. It's the fact that Heyman would just do all of the talking for him. I love what he's done now with Roman. I think he fits so well into the bloodline now.
Yeah, like for me, it's a very difficult question to answer because you haven't seen how it's going to end with Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
Because right now the work that Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman are doing is superb. I want to see what happens after Mania because I'm still a Cody Mania hopeful, and I'm hoping that Cody finishes his story and then Roman Reigns just leaves for a while. So if Roman leaves, what happens with Heyman?
Break the record.
What?
Roman's gonna break the record.
No, it's not. We're going to finish the story, Rohit. Getting bored.
I mean, hopefully. But...
No, Rohit, stop.
It will be interesting to see what is next for Heyman. So yeah, we'll wrap it up there, guys. Great show. And I think we've come to the majority decision that Paul Heyman is the greatest manager in wrestling history. So yeah, Rohit, Alfonso, thank you so much for this week.
But before we
No
go, I
worries.
just want to say thanks to all the followers we have. Just made to
Yeah, we
1,000
reached some
followers on
milestones, haven't we?
YouTube.
Yeah.
So thank you to everybody that follow us. Thank you for everybody that listen to us. And let's keep growing. Let's keep talking about wrestling, and let's keep enjoying wrestling.
Yeah, couldn't have said it
Yep.
better. We've hit 1,000, so we're going to throw a few topics out there and let the fans decide what we're going to talk about next. So yeah,
Yeah.
amazing, and thank you to everybody out there.
Appreciate all of you guys. Yeah.
Go to YouTube, One Stop Wrestling, and please like and subscribe. It means a lot. So yeah, guys.
Or dislike, any interaction works.
On that note, we will leave it there, guys. Thank you so much, and yeah, we will see everybody next time for another One Stop Wrestling podcast. Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao.